Hey everyone, I'm Haley. I study strategic communications. Let's sharpen our media literacy skills together. This is how to push back. Over 100 people have died in the recent Texas floods, and many more are still missing. The facts of the disaster are really tragic, but how the story is told varies dramatically depending on the news outlet. This episode, I want to look at canalization of blame, how grief, fear, frustration, they often get directed towards different targets through language and framing. We're going to break down 2 Fox News clips and 2 from MSNBC. Each takes a different rhetorical approach to the same event. As always, let me know what you notice, what feels helpful, what feels manipulative, and what kind of questions you're left with after you watch the clips.
For the past 72 hours, as families grieved, Democrats and members of the media have tried to capitalize on the devastating floods in Central Texas. Some blamed Trump's DOGE cuts for the death toll. Others cited global warming. And at least one far-left monster said that the victims deserved to die and suffer because most Texans voted for Trump. The nonstop smear campaign might be a new low for the Democratic Party. And per usual, it is completely bogus.
The anchor is framing the criticism from the left as an attack. She's using words like depraved, bogus, monster. Rather than focusing on what happened or what failed, the segment is redirecting attention towards perceived political enemies, in this case, the left. It's a form of loaded language. And she's doing a fair amount of generalization here, too. So they're making this one extreme claim and using it to discredit a broader conversation. The effect is to activate group loyalty, shut down debate.
Community is feeling is something that I think we all feel, and I can particularly resonate with it. As when I was a young boy, I found a 10-year-old drowning victim, and I understand what the first responders are doing. They are heroes, and the communication gaps that may emerge after the review of this incident and this calamity is performed, those are learning lessons. And as many folks might say in different areas, the rules and the lessons are learned and written in blood. When we have a loss, we seem to make changes to accommodate those. But there are avenues of opportunity that are in front of us where we can get ahead of these types of things. And I'd be happy to elaborate. But I think that
He opens up with a personal anecdote about discovering a drowning victim. And this is an emotional appeal to authority. He's using the story to serve as a bridge to praise the first responders and underscore the emotional weight of the moment. And from there, he gradually introduces broader concerns about communication gaps, preparedness, and even climate adaptation policy. So he's doing an emotional setup that makes the transition feel really natural, but it also anchors the argument in personal experience and emotion rather than data. This is an example of emotional sequencing. So you have story, empathy, implied action. And it is a common tool in canalization. Do you think this kind of personal appeal clarifies the issue, or do you think it complicates how we talk about policy?
The National Weather Service did its job. There were no staffing shortages. This was a horrific tragedy, and that tragedy should not be exploited for political gain. The White House confirmed today President Trump is set to visit with grieving families in Texas on.
The speaker quickly asserts here that the Weather Service did its job. They deny any staffing or budget issues. There's no discussion of the preparedness. There's no discussion of climate patterns. There's just a really strong claim that any criticism is false or manipulative. This is dismissal tactics. This is also a fair bit of deflection. So the rhetorical goal is to protect a narrative by discrediting dissent. Instead of examining what happened, the segments ask us to reject the need for any examination or explanation.
issuing the weather forecast, I want to go back to your comment about the first responders. I would put the National Weather Service forecasters in that similar batch of heroes. They are working in an understaffed environment, and they're covering the obligations that are necessary in order to continue to keep the public safe. So the withdrawal of funds and the firing of people that have taken place in NOAA is remarkably troubling to me, because these National Weather Service people, the forecast office, staff and beyond are undermanned, understaffed in order to fulfill the complete mission. I think the people in the local forecast offices did what weather service forecasters do routinely. They work heroically. They work around the clock. They work without sleep.
The speaker is linking underfunded forecasting systems to human loss, and they're connecting the repeated flooding to climate change. This is a really strong example of causal framing. So they're positioning the policy as a contributing factor to the tragedy. The tone is moral, it's urgent, they're pushing towards reform, but it doesn't offer any counterbalance or competing views. So we saw a couple of different ways to cover the same disaster. One turned grief into a defense of group identity. One opened with emotion and then quietly planted some questions in there. One avoided the story almost entirely. One drew a straight line from policy to death. That's canalization. How emotion gets steered, where blame is pointed, and what responses feel allowed. I'm curious where you landed. Which framing made you think? Which made you pull back? Leave a comment if you're up for it. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this. Thanks, everybody. I'm Haley, and this has been How to Push Back.